හරිම සුළුයි.
Tonight on First at 9 this Friday, the 1st of December 2023. Need for climate justice. President Ranil Wickremesinghe highlights the need for a climate justice forum.
Climate justice must be available to all people and all countries.
Reiterates his commitment to commence the operations of the Climate Justice University next year.
We will be operationalizing the ICTU next year.
To the world. Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena reveals plans by the government to establish 40,000 villages in 14,000 Grama-Niladhari divisions across the island through the latest agriculture export project. Elect a visionary. SLPP parliamentarian Sanjeev Edrimanna urges the public to vote for the candidate with the best policies to attract investments.
අදානි ආපු මේ රටේ වරාය සංවර්ධන ව්‍යාපෘතියට බය වෙච්ච සාම්පූර් බලාගාරය හැදුවොත් මේ රට විනාශයි කියලා හිතවෙවුන් එක්ක මේ රට කරන්න බෑ.
Meanwhile, the opposition leader unveils the latest controversy surrounding Sri Lanka cricket.
ඔක්කොටම අය කරලා තියෙන්නේ ලක්ෂ 65යි බදු අන්ඩර් ඉන්වොයිස් කරලා තිබෙන්නේ.
අපි කතා කරන්න ඕනේ විමර්ශන ආරම්භ නොකරපු දේවල් පිළිබඳව.
Supply side inflation. Economic experts highlight the possibility of fuel being subject to value-added tax from next year onwards. Points out the possibility of supply side inflation.
ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දෙනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟමැති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක.
This is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to AdaDerana First at 9. I'm AdaDerana Singh joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and around the world. Now in your top story tonight, while highlighting the need of climate justice for all the people in the world, President Ranil Wickremesinghe said a resolution will be proposed for a climate justice forum and that steps will be taken to move the resolution at the UN Environmental Assembly, which will be held on the 6th of February next year. Delivering his address at the segment for national statements by heads of state, President Wickremesinghe reiterated Sri Lanka's commitment to commence operations of the International Climate Change University, which will be established in Sri Lanka next year. Further, the head of state called for more investments in the tropical belt and added that joint measures will be taken by the Tropical Belt Initiative and the Indian Ocean Rim Association states, including Sri Lanka, to make the Indian Ocean a sustainable ocean. The 20th edition of the United Nations Climate Change Conference, or COP28, commenced in Dubai, the United Arab Emirates, yesterday. It is the world's only multilateral decision-making forum on climate change with almost complete membership of every country in the world. At COP28, the world comes together to agree on ways to address climate crises, such as limiting global temperature rise to 1.5 degrees Celsius, helping the vulnerable communities adapt to the effects of climate change, and achieving net zero emissions by 2050. The delivery of national statements by heads of state of the summit commenced today following the opening remarks delivered by the president of COP28 and UAE Special Envoy for Climate Change, Dr. Sultan Ahmed Al Jaber. Delivering his statement, President Ranil Wickremesinghe highlighted the need for more investment in the tropical belt as an initiative to tackle climate change.
Climate justice must be available to all people and all countries. In this background, Sri Lanka will propose a resolution for a climate justice forum, which was agreed upon at the 5th Forum of the Ministers of Environmental Authorities of Asia and Pacific, to be moved at the UN Environmental Assembly of 6 February 2024. The Climate Justice Forum will provide us a platform for constructive and proactive engagements. Sri Lanka is committed to 1.5 degree Celsius limit. We are facing a drastic situation. To avoid disaster, we must think outside the box. We must invest in the tropical belt to tackle the triple planetary crisis. The tropical belt constitutes 134 countries, covering 44% of Earth's surface, and will by 2030 be home to roughly 50% of the world's population. Most of the world's remaining primary forests are tropical, along with its coral reef system. The rich biodiversity of the tropical belt enhances biological carbon sequestration and can shield the world from instabilities in weather. Furthermore, the energy generation potential from solar, wind and biomass are significantly higher in the tropics than that of other areas on the earth. Yet, anthropogenic activities in the tropical belt can easily lead to an imbalance in the equilibrium of this region. So much so that some scientists predict that the tropical rain belt could shift away from the equator by the 22nd century. Large-scale investments in renewable energy, pollution control and nature-based solutions will lead to significant transformative changes in the entire world by enhancing carbon sequestration. Therefore, Sri Lanka and other concerned countries will convene a panel to report on the Tropical Belt Initiative, a multi-sector program distributed not only among the whole tropical region, but the whole world. As the current chair of the Indian Ocean Rim Association, Sri Lanka is focusing on the interdependence between the Indian Ocean and climate change. The rapid climate change is altering the marine environment with rising sea levels and temperatures, ocean acidification, coral bleaching, habitat destruction and extreme weather patterns. These phenomena have a direct impact on human lives by disrupting ocean biodiversity. The ocean depends on food patterns and coastal livelihoods. Member states and partners of IORA will work towards ensuring a sustainable Indian Ocean for future generations. The Tropical Belt Initiative and the Indian Ocean IORA program combined will form the largest global sink for carbon sequestration, addressing the climate change needs, up-to-date scientific knowledge and the effective use of these findings. Therefore, at COP27, I propose to establish an international climate change university for capacity building and advancing research necessary to contribute to the crucial efforts to limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. We will be operationalizing the ICTU next year.
Now, meanwhile, in a bid to strengthen the rural community of Sri Lanka with a better contribution towards achieving food security and earning foreign exchange, Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena revealed plans of the government to implement a new agriculture export project named AdaDerana Lovata by establishing 40,000 villages in 14,000 Grama Niladhari divisions across the island. Delivering the keynote address of the Lalit Athulat Mudali commemorative lecture, the Prime Minister said hundreds of thousands of underutilized lands will be released to the youth of the country for cultivation in order to obtain their contribution for the project. The Lalit Athulat Mudali commemorative lecture, organized by the Lalit Athulat Mudali Foundation, Institute for Democracy and Leadership and the Frederick Newman Foundation for Freedom, was held in Colombo yesterday. The keynote speech of the commemorative lecture was delivered by Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena.
Under the leadership of President Ranil Wickremesinghe, radical changes in the land reforms and in agriculture has been announced. President's budget encompasses possibilities of a radical land reform which the country, the rural economy and the youth of our country today is calling for. Today, unless we proceed with a productive planned land reform that can advance us for another sectors of exports, we will be faced with an expanding grave situation of poverty encompassing us. There have been on and off land reforms, all have been a failure. But still, we have immense amount of land that can be turned into positive development, production, investment and for exports. Export villages would have changed our entire export economy. Not only the large estates of the plantations coming into exports, but a new contribution from the rural village population to the economy as well as to our exports. New gateway of exports from AdaDerana Lovata, connecting over 14,000 Grama Niladhari divisions, with each GN division being made up of 33 to 4 villages across the country. We'll have a total over 40,000 villages, making everyone in the village, the elderly, active in production. Our voyage must begin with the first 1,000 GN divisions across 334 divisional areas in 25 districts, and target towards achieving 5,000 or 1/3 of total GN divisions, thereby directly getting them to contribute towards national food security and exporting surplus towards earning valuable foreign exchange to the country. For this, the new generation must be released with hundreds of thousands of lands deprived of them for centuries and for generations to engage in foreign exchange earning for the country and for them, improving their own income generation and thereby come out of a severe poverty and indebtedness that has engulfed the rural population of our country. These lands can be vested under different schemes for food and export production. What was lost of a generation for centuries, we will be able to regain. Not just for cultivation, but land must be used for us to come out of our energy crisis. Land that can be utilized to produce energy, especially through a variety of renewable potentials.
Now, meanwhile, taking the upcoming presidential election into account, parliamentarian of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, Sanjeev Edirimanna, made a request from the public to vote for the candidate with the best policies to attract investments and develop industries. He made these comments while addressing the budget debate in Parliament. Meanwhile, tensions in the Parliament rose following the revelation of yet another alleged corruption scandal of Sri Lanka cricket by the opposition leader Sajith Premadasa.
අපේ රටේ ක්‍රිකට් ග්‍රවුන්ඩ්ස් තුනක එකට ඇනුම් කරලා තිබෙනවා අඩි 60යි 30 LED ස්ක්‍රීන්ස් තුනක්. මේ මොහොතේ රේගුවේ නිලධාරීන් රේඩ් කරනවා ක්‍රීඩාංගන තුනේ හදපු LED ස්ක්‍රීන්ස්. මොකද්ද දන්නවද කාරණා? මේ ඔක්කොටම අය කරලා තියෙන්නේ ලක්ෂ 65යි බදු අන්ඩර් ඉන්වොයිස් කරලා තිබෙන්නේ.
රේගුව විසින් සොයාගත්ත කාරණයක් රේගුවම විමර්ශනයක් ආරම්භ කරලා රේගුව ඒ සඳහා අවශ්‍ය කටයුතු කරද්දී අපි කතා කරන්න ඕනි කරු කතානායකතුමනි විමර්ශන ආරම්භ නොකරපු දේවල් පිළිබඳව ආරම්භ කරපු විමර්ශනයක් මෙතන ඇවිල්ලා කතා කරන්න අවශ්‍යතාවයක් නැහැ.
මම මේක මතු කරේයි මේ අන්ඩර් ඉන්වොයිස් කරලා ගෙනාපු LED ස්ක්‍රීන් මේ ගලවගෙන යන්න හදනවා. ඒකයි මම මතු කරේ.
ඉතිහාසයේ පළවෙනි වතාවට කුසිකර්ම ශ්‍රේෂ්ඨයට කුසිකර්ම නිෂ්පාදන සඳහා වැට්ට බද්ද එකතු වෙනවා. මේ වගේ යෝජනාවක් ගේනකොට හොයලා බලලා මේකෙන් වෙන සමාජ හානිය කුසිකර්ම ශ්‍රේෂ්ඨ වැටෙන බැටල් යම් ඇගීමක් කරලාද මේ වගේ තකදීරු දීන්දු ගත්ත කියලා අහන්න කැමතියි.
කෘෂි ශ්‍රේෂ්ඨයට අදාළ දේවල් වලට මේ බදු සහනයක් නිරන්තරයෙන්ම ලබා දුන්නා. මේ වතාවෙත් ඒ ලබා දෙන්න කියලා මම බලාපොරොත්තුෙන් ඉන්න ඒ කටයුත්ත සිද්ධ වෙයි කියලා. එහෙම නොවුනොත් මේ ශේෂ්ත්‍රයේ කඩාවැටීමක් ඇති වෙන්න ඉඩ තියෙනවා.
ලංකාවේ අපි දන්නවා ප්‍රධානතම කාරණයක් තමයි ලංකාවේ නිෂ්පාදන වියදම ඉතා වැඩි විදුලිය ඒක මැඩ් නිසා. ඉතින් අපි කාංචන මැතිතුමාට නිතරම කියන කාරණයක් තමයි කරුණාකර ඔබතුමා විදුලි බල අමාත්‍යාංශය මගින් මේ ජනන වියදම අඩු කරගන්න කියන කාරණය. විදුලි බිල මේ මට්ටමේ තිබුණොත් අපේ කර්මාන්ත සියල්ලටම විශාල ගැටලුවක් වෙනවා කියන කාරණේ ඉතා පැහැදිලි.
ඊළඟ මැතිවරණයකදී මේ රටේ නායකයා තෝරගන්නකොට හොඳම ආයෝජන සහ කර්මාන්ත ප්‍රතිපත්ති ඉදිරිපත් කරන මිනිහව මේ රටේ නායකයා කරගන්න කියලා මම මේ රටේ මහජනයාට ඉතාම ගෞරවයෙන් යෝජනා කරන්න කැමතියි. මේක අදානි ආපු මේ රටේ වරාය සංවර්ධන ව්‍යාපෘතියට බය වෙච්ච නිව් ෆෝර්ට්‍රස් එනර්ජි LNG බලාගාර ව්‍යාපෘතිය දිහා වෛරයෙන් බලපු සාම්පූර් බලාගාරය හැදුවොත් මේ රට විනාශයි කියලා හිතවෙවුන් එක්ක මේ රට කරන්න බෑ. ඒ නිසා මම කියන්නේ මේ සියල්ල දෙස ඉතාම නිර්වුල් මනසකින් බැලිය යුතුයි.
ව්‍යවසායකත්ව මානසිකත්වයක් අපේ රටේ හදන්න වෙනවා. අපිට පාසල් අධ්‍යාපනයෙන්ම මේ වැඩේ ආරම්භ කරන්න වෙනවා. එහෙම නැත්නම් අපි කර්මාන්ත දියුණු කිරීම සඳහා මොනතරම් අයවැයවල යෝජනා දාලා කතා කරත් වැඩක් වෙන්නේ නැහැ.
Now, in other news, the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation, Lanka IOC and Sinopec announced their revised fuel prices with effect from midnight yesterday. Despite the reduction of diesel prices, bus fares, three-wheel charges as well as school transport service charges are expected to remain unchanged. State-run Ceylon Petroleum Corporation revised its fuel prices with effect from midnight yesterday. Accordingly, the new price per litre of 92-octane petrol was brought down by 10 rupees and its new price stands at 346 rupees. However, the price of 95-octane petrol was increased by 3 rupees and the new price per litre is currently at 426 rupees. The price of auto diesel was dropped by 27 rupees, marking its new price at 329 rupees per litre. However, the price of super diesel was increased by 3 rupees. The new price of super diesel per litre stands at 334 rupees. The price of a litre of kerosene was also reduced by 2 rupees and the revised price is currently at 247 rupees. Subsequently, fuel prices of Lanka IOC as well as Sinopec were also revised, similar to the fuel price revision announced by the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation. However, relevant associations of buses, three-wheelers as well as school transport services say fares will not be reduced despite the price revision.
මේ රුපියල් 10 අඩු කිරීම සම්බන්ධයෙන් ගාස්තු අඩු කිරීමකට අපිට යන්න විදිහක් නැහැ. ගියා කියලා ඇති වැඩක් නැහැ. රුපියලක් 750ක් අඩු කරලා මේ වැඩේ කරන්න බෑ. මගියට සහනය දෙන්න වෙන්නේ මේ රුපියල් 10ට 750ක් අඩු කිරීම කියන තොරම්බල් සීනි බෝල කතාව නෙමෙයි. විධිමත් නියාමනයක් තුල කියන එක මගියට කියනවා.
රුපියල් 27කින් ඩීසල් මිල අඩු වෙලා තිනවා. හැමෝම අහනවා පාසල් ප්‍රවාහන ගාස්තු අඩු කරනවාද කියලා. මීට පෙර ඩීසල් මිල ඉහළ ගියත් අපි ගාස්තු වැඩි කිරීමක් කරේ නැහැ. ඉතින් ඒ නිසා මේ අඩු කිරීම අඩු කරන්න විදියක් නැහැ අපිට.
මේ අවස්ථාවේදී බස් ගාස්තු කිසිසේත්ම අඩුවීමක් සිද්ධ වෙන්නේ නැහැ. මොකද 27ක් අඩු වුණාට කලබල වෙන්න එපා. රුපියල් 15ක් වැඩි වෙච්ච අවස්ථාවේදී ඒ කියන්නේ 5ත් සහ රුපියල් 10ත් වැඩි වුණා. මේ අවස්ථාවේදී අපි බස් ගාස්තු වැඩි කරන්න කටයුතු කරේ නැහැ. ඉතින් ඇත්ත වශයෙන්ම රුපියල් 12ක් පමණයි. එතකොට මේ ජාතික ප්‍රතිපත්තිය අනුව අඩු වෙලා තියෙන්නේ.
මෙවර බස් ගාස්තු අඩු කිරීමකට යන්නට කිසිසේත් හැකියාවක් නැති බව තමයි ප්‍රකාශ කරන්න තියෙන්නේ.
Now, the Sri Lankan youth will be conditionally allowed to enter Japan under the special skilled worker visa category for employment opportunities in the construction sector. According to Minister of Labour and Foreign Employment Manushanana Kara, the move comes into effect today. However, those interested are required to fulfill the Japanese language proficiency exam by passing the proficiency exam in order to be eligible to secure entry to Japan under the special skilled worker visa category.
An event to announce a program which conditionally allows the Sri Lankan youth to enter Japan under the special skilled worker visa category for employment opportunities in the construction sector was held in Colombo this morning. The event was graced by Minister of Labour and Foreign Employment Manushanana Kara, Japanese Ambassador to Sri Lanka Mizukoshi Hideaki, as well as Sri Lankan representative of Japan International Cooperation Agency Tetsuya Yamada.
අද දවසේදී අපිට ඉදිකිරීම් ක්ෂේත්‍රයේ සඳහාත් SSW කාණ්ඩය යටතේ ශ්‍රී ලාංකික තරුණ තරුණියන්ට ඉඩකඩ අවස්ථාව උදා වෙනවා. අද දවසේ ඉඳලා ඉදිකිරීම් ක්ෂේත්‍රයට ජපානය කරා යන්න අවශ්‍ය කරන මූලික විභාග කටයුතු අද ඉඳලා ආරම්භ වෙනවා. ඒ ජපාන් භාෂාව පුළුවන්, ඒ වගේම ඉදිකිරීම් ක්ෂේත්‍රයට සම්බන්ධ අයට පුළුවන් මේ විභාගයට මුහුණ දීලා ජපානයට SSW කැටගරි එක යටතේ යන්න. අද දිනේ ඉඳලා මධ්‍යස්ථාන 4ක විභාග පැවැත්වෙනවා.
The construction sector is an essential industry responsible for ensuring the safety of society by developing and maintaining infrastructures. However, due to the declining birth rate and aging population in Japan, the construction sector in Japan is facing a serious shortage of labor, with the number of workers in 2021 down about 30% from its peak in 1997. Furthermore, approximately 25% of the construction sector workforce is over the age of 60, with the majority expected to retire in 10 years. Therefore, there is an urgent need to secure younger workers from overseas. Thus, it is indeed timely both for Japan and Sri Lanka to open a new gateway to working in Japan. I sincerely hope that as many talented Sri Lankans as possible will take this new opportunity to work in Japan, contributing to Japan's construction sector.
Now, with the GCE ordinary level examination results being released early today, records indicate that 13,380 candidates have obtained 9A passes in the examination. According to the Department of Examinations, 74.31% of the candidates who faced the GCE ordinary level examination have qualified to sit for the GCE advanced level examination. It is significant that 13,380 candidates who faced their first attempt were able to obtain 9A passes. Samadhi Anuradha Ranavaka, a student of Mahamaya Balika Vidyalaya Kandy, managed to secure the island first rank in 2022 GCE O-level examination. In the meantime, the Department of Examinations confirmed that a total of 7,045 candidates have failed all 9 subjects. The authorities also state that the calling for applications of re-scrutiny will be from the 4th of December to the 18th of December. Now, in other local news, the controversial preacher Pastor Jerome Fernando was arrested today by the CID over his remarks on several religions. Meanwhile, the Kaluthara police arrested a duo who allegedly committed several crimes in the Kaluthara district yesterday. With that, let's take a look at some news across the island in brief.
Pastor Jerome Fernando has been remanded until the 13th of December over his controversial remarks on several religions. He was presented before the Colombo Fort Magistrate this afternoon following his apprehension by the Criminal Investigation Department. The apprehension was made few hours after he arrived at the premises to record a statement for the second consecutive day. The Kaluthara police arrested a duo who allegedly committed several crimes in the Kaluthara district yesterday. According to the police, the suspects aged 27 and 18 were identified as residents of the Dodanggoda area. They added that the main suspect is believed to be a former soldier who served in the Gajaba regiment of the Sri Lanka Army. Methamphetamine and heroin were in possession of the suspects at the time of the arrest. In other news, a cameraman of a private media company has been attacked to death at a restaurant in the Veyanggoda Katuwasgoda area. The victim, a father of one, is reported to be a resident of the Attanagalla Valpola area. According to reports, the incident took place at around 7 p.m. yesterday. Subsequently, the owners of the restaurant rushed the victim, who suffered several cut injuries, to the Watupitiwala hospital. According to sources, the owners of the restaurant have been arrested under suspicion of the murder by the police and interrogations have already commenced.
Welcome back. Now in your business news, amid news of Sri Lanka's fuel price revision just yesterday, some economic strategists are of the view that an 18% value-added tax will be imposed on petrol, diesel and liquid petroleum gas from next year onwards, which may cause supply-side inflation. Further, they are also of the view that petrol, diesel and LPG will collectively contribute 280 to 300 billion rupees in tax revenue to the government. Today we have Chief Strategist of Capital Alliance Limited, Udishan Jonas, joining us in our new segment, Understanding Taxes in Sri Lanka.
Out of the 1.2 trillion tax increase expected, roughly 850 billion rupees of increase is coming from indirect taxes, and 260 billion rupees increase is coming from income taxes, and another 150 odd billion rupees is coming from external trade. So as you know, the largest increase is coming from indirect taxes, and we feel this is mainly as a result of the revisions that are going to be made in value added tax. The indirect tax increase is a whopping 62% year-on-year increase, which from our perspective is very excessive and may be difficult to collect if economic growth does not materialize. So if you drill down the reasons why indirect taxes could be increasing by 862 billion in 2024, one of the key proposals which were mentioned ahead of the budget was the value-added taxes being increased from 15 to 18%. Now, the 15 to 18% increase in value-added taxes will add roughly about 120 billion rupees in terms of collections to the government in 2024, which means that you have to collect another 740 billion rupees through other tax mechanisms. And the key mechanisms that the government is looking at is removing exemptions on VAT exempt products starting from 2024. So excluding healthcare, education and a few food items, most of the other items will be subject to value-added taxes going into 2024. This will mean that more than 100 products which were previously excluded from VAT will be subject to VAT from 2024. Now, out of the value-added tax exempt list, which was applicable until 2023, the larger component is coming from your petrol, diesel and LPG gas components, which have been exempt from VAT up to now. So, most likely scenario is that an 18% value-added tax will be imposed on petrol, diesel and LPG gas. However, government may look at removing the port aviation levy from it, which will mean that your fuel prices may increase roughly about 10 to 12% going into 2024, which will cause some kind of supply side inflation for next year. And we feel that petrol, diesel and LPG together will contribute close to about 280 to 300 billion rupees in terms of tax collections for next year. Apart from that, we feel that the removal of other exemptions, as well as they might have to look at reducing the threshold on value-added taxes from the current levels and the minimum thresholds on social security levy from next year to reduce it to increase the tax base on both VAT and SSCL. In terms of the VAT exemptions, the key noteworthy products which will be subject to VAT will be healthcare equipments, electronic items such as mobile phones, computers and so on, dairy products, some rice products, and also some services, like for example if you're hosting an international show in Sri Lanka, those products, those services will also be included in the value-added taxes from next year. Apart from that, even though personal vehicles are not going to be allowed for vehicle imports for next year, the inclusion of commercial vehicle imports will incrementally add to the indirect taxes as well as the custom duty collections for next year. And from a direct tax perspective, the income tax increase expected for next year is mainly materializing from increasing the tax base.
Now in other business news, the Colombo Stock Exchange closed in green today, aided by gains in financial and industrial stocks. The Colombo Stock Exchange all-share price index settled at 1.2% at 10,720.26, gaining for a third straight session. For the week, the index rose 1.84%, snapping up 2 weeks of fall. LOLC Finance and Expo Lanka Holdings were the top gainers on the ASPI, rising 4.36% and 2.12% respectively. Trading volume on the index fell to 38.7 million shares from 57.8 million shares in the previous session. Meanwhile, the S&P Sri Lanka 20 rose 1.23% and settled at 3,047.12 points. The equity market's turnover fell to 962.2 million rupees from 1.91 billion rupees in the previous session. The banking sector was the top contributor to the market turnover, while food, beverage and tobacco sector was the second highest contributor. Foreign investors were net buyers purchasing stocks worth 56 million rupees, while domestic investors were net sellers offloading shares worth 911.1 million rupees, the data showed. Take a look at how the rupee traded against other major currencies during the day. Now in your latest corporate updates, Cargill's Bank announces its initial public offering to raise 500 million rupees of Tier 1 capital. Meanwhile, Commercial Bank of Ceylon PLC and AIA Insurance Sri Lanka announced an exclusive long-term bancassurance partnership to provide a broad range of carefully curated life insurance propositions to commercial banks' customers.
Cargill's Bank announced its initial public offering to raise 500 million rupees of Tier 1 capital through the issuance of 62.5 million shares at 8 rupees per share, marking a significant milestone in the bank's journey. The IPO is now open for applications, and the opening of the subscription list will be on the 14th of December. Speaking at the launch of its initial public offering, Senarath Bandara, Managing Director and CEO of Cargill's Bank, stated that over the past 3 years, despite the difficult economic and operating conditions, the bank has stabilized its course and is now positioned for growth. He went on to say that the bank has recorded a 20% year-to-date growth in net assets this year and that they plan to accelerate this growth in the coming years through several planned initiatives. The Commercial Bank of Ceylon PLC, Sri Lanka's largest private bank, and AIA Insurance Lanka Limited, pioneers of bancassurance in Sri Lanka, announced an exclusive long-term bancassurance partnership. Through this partnership, AIA Sri Lanka will provide a broad range of carefully curated life insurance propositions to commercial banks' customers, purposefully catering to their protection, health, and saving needs. This partnership of two respected corporates in the country is expected to unlock strong potential to provide protection to Sri Lankans by combining AIA's bancassurance expertise with Commercial Bank's network of more than 4 million customers spanning across 270 branches. In other corporate news, Sri Lanka's fastest growing digital payment brand HelaPay announced that it has crossed 1 billion rupees in total transactions through its innovative payment method. This landmark milestone underscores HelaPay's rapid ascent in the local financial technology sector, having accomplished this feat in just 2 years since its launch in 2021. Currently, the Helakuru Super App has nearly 5 million monthly active users who are rapidly adapting to its in-app digital payment method HelaPay. This is a further testament to the platform's widespread adoption and financial impact.
And with that, we wrap up tonight's edition of AdaDerana First at 9. Stay in touch with us on www.adaderana.lk for the latest developments around the clock. Thank you. Have a great night.
For news and information you can trust 24 hours a day, visit AdaDerana.lk.